Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Mastermind Academy. Tonight we got a panel of some pretty dope tech people. One, let us know first if the audio is decent. Like we're struggling trying to get this right. Hopefully it's good enough for you to hear us. I'm not sure if you can hear any music or not. Actually, you can't. Let me give you a little bit of music, a little background music. Hopefully you can hear it. Let me know if the audio levels need to be increased, decreased, because we don't have a good way to monitor right now. You can obviously see on the TV that we have it up, but I don't know for sure if the sound sounds good. So let me know. Let me know if you can even hear me first off. Whoa, can you see? It sounds good here. All right, but as usual, we'll give people a few minutes to kind of get on. Yeah, this is not as I like to be able to hear the music that you can hear right now. But yeah, yes, it is a 360 cam. So we're at a rectangular table, but you can see everyone all at once. It should switch to the people who are speaking. Somebody want to give me a sustained amount of noise? See if it switches to you.
Hey, is it switching? Let's do this. Boom, there it is.
Yeah, there we go. So hopefully it should do its best to follow. It should do its best to keep up. I don't know what it's going to do when if we all start talking at once. We all start having some crazy conversations. But we're gonna be just kind of free forming this. I do have some questions that we're gonna go around and we're gonna talk to each other about different things. Talk about our experiences. People at this table are working at a lot of different companies. Well, not a lot of different companies, but different companies. But we are all of different levels, different backgrounds. Some of us are software engineers, some of us are DevOps engineers, some of us are not engineers at all. But we are all, in the tech space. So we'll talk about some of that. We'll talk about our experiences, and then again, any questions you guys have, shoot them in the chat. I'm gonna do my best to, keep those off to the side. I'm gonna keep track of all those questions. And we'll go ahead and get them answered. But yeah, like I said, we're going to wait another 2 minutes or so, get people to 8:05, get logged on, get ready to go. And then we'll get to it. But again, you can start typing your questions now, and then we'll get into some quick introductions, and we will go from there. So this is going to be very Reddit AMA style. If anyone's familiar with Reddit. If you're not familiar with Reddit, you should get familiar with Reddit, reddit.com. But yeah, this isn't Ask Me Anything. So ask us almost anything, preferably tech related. We can get off track. The internet's a wild place, so don't ask anything too crazy. But yeah, we're here to have fun. We'll have a good time, and we'll get all those things answered. But yeah, let me see. I'm doing this off of my laptop. I'm used to doing it from my desktop, so hopefully we don't have too many dropped frames. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the processing of it now. Well, yeah. What's up, everybody? How you doing, Shug? Seeing a lot of familiar faces. 88 Opus. It's definitely different. So let me know how you. Also, just take notes. Let me know how you like this format. I think there are some ways to make it better already. Now that we're actually into it, but definitely let me know. We're gonna be doing a feedback session. So for anyone who doesn't know, this is the last. This is last week. We finally made it to week 12 of our DevOps deep dive, our introduction to DevOps. Bootcamp. So we're in week 12. It's this stream, and on Wednesday we're going to be talking about how to pass, the technical interview. But we can get a lot of those questions answered tonight as well. But this is the last week. Starting next week, the first thing we're going to do is have a retro about the 12 weeks that about what we did. And actually, maybe Coffee, maybe you want to lead that.
Sure.
But we're going to run a little bit of a retro for kind of what we went over, what we learned, talk about what went well, what didn't go well, and what we can do next time. Because again, this is something that is going to run more times, and we're going to be doing different workshops and boot camps as we continue. But yeah, this is the last week. We made it. We finally made it. But all right, we can go ahead and we can start introducing ourselves because this is going to be so there's a lot of us in the room tonight. We'll just run around. Everyone just talk about whatever you want people to know about you, your name, what you do, who you work for. I would like to I think at the very end hold your level of experience. I think want to run around at the very end after people get to know you, so everyone can kind of immediately identify kind of who's junior, who's super senior, who's somewhere in the middle. So we'll talk about that at the very end. But just introduce yourselves, tell people anything you would like them to know about you. If you want to tell them something cool about yourselves, whatever you want to tell people, take your time, go for it, introduce yourselves, and just make sure you project or try to project. So maybe you want to start.
Sure. I'm Sam. I'm the CTO of a company called Sabre Technology Solutions. We're kind of new on the scene. I do consider myself more of like a full stack developer, so that's kind of my background is sort of in software development and engineering. So I kind of do everything from front end, back end. I dabble in DevOps. I don't consider myself quite an expert, but our big focus, or at least my big focus, and what I'm really passionate about is sort of data. So everything at the intersection of like engineering and dealing with data. So that's just a little bit about me.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Candace. I'm a DevOps engineer here at Fearless. Not here at Fearless, but at Fearless. Yeah.
Cool.
Alex, I'm a full stack engineer, software engineer at Fearless.
All right. Do any of the people in the back, would you like to?
I'm Claudia DiCarlo. I'm the CEO of Sabre. I'm just here to heckle Sam, who's going to be your panelist for the whole evening.
I'm Coffee Harrison, the president of Uplife, where we spark greatness in programs by powering successful delivery through management services, program management, project management, whatever you call it. I'm sure you all have experienced it, but it is very important in all aspects of business. And I am in a business incubator with Sabre Technologies, Claudia, and Aaron, Mastermind Academy. So I'm just here to provide support.
My name is Doug. I'm an engineer for Under Armour. I'm also full stack, so I do primarily stuff on the web, but back end, front end, kind of jack of all trades. Yeah.
I'm Terrence, software engineer here at Fearless. I am not a full stack developer. I do back end. I've dabbled in front end, but I don't like it because you get blamed for everything. Yeah.
So you guys probably know me. My name is Aaron Brooks. I'm a DevOps engineer and technical lead here. So we're actually in one of the offices at Fearless Solutions, Fearless out of Baltimore. But I also run Mastermind Academy. I'm a DevOps engineer and technical lead here on this project.
I'm Malcolm. Camera go. All right. I'm Malcolm. I'm an engineer at Parsons, company called Parsons. Do a little bit of like full stack and also a little bit of DevOps.
One second. I'm just doing my best to hop into the chat, make sure. I'm trying to catch you guys' questions. Yes, this is Terrence maybe he's to the, I don't know. He's right here. That's Terrence right here.
I'm right here.
So try to remember everyone's names. So we got Sam, Candace, Alex, Doug, Terrence, Aaron, Malcolm, Claudia, Coffee. Do your best to, if you want to speak to anyone in particular, let us know and we'll try to get, things answered. Or just say, hey, dude in the purple shirt, hey, woman in the red jacket, that should do it. I think we'll be able to figure it out. We're pretty smart. But, all right, first thing I want to do is I want everyone to go around the room and tell what level you feel like you are in your engineering career and kind of how many years of experience that entails, because this is you're gonna get some weird answers here. You can see it look on everyone's face right now, and everyone's like, "Ooh, I don't really know how to answer this." That's the first place we're gonna start.
Let's go. Are we talking about level compared to what the Fearless 1 through 5 is, or what I think I am?
Just judging from your industry experience and what you know about the industry, like where you would slot yourself if a random person off the street asked you, you can answer it any way you want. You could say, if you want to do it on a level 10, like a 1 through 10, if you want to do it mid, junior, senior, because we're going to break it down from there, but that is where we want to
start. So we say where we are now? Or where we currently are?
Where you feel
where you feel you are. On Fearless' scales of 1 to 5, I feel like I'm 7. That's number 1. I feel very, not super, super senior, but I feel like, at a certain point, you get confidence and you know what you're doing. I wouldn't say mid-level, because I've actually had mid-level positions and it's different responsibilities when you jump to a senior level. So I would definitely say senior level, not to be like, I'm senior level, but it's important, especially when it comes to money. And if you're gonna do that work, you should get paid for it. So that's how I feel. How y'all feel?
I expect facts.
You know what I mean?
I'm definitely a senior, but I feel like the difference between what the expectations are. So yeah, I'm definitely at least senior. I would say.
How many years?
How many years
does it? cross over in your mind.
How many years experience do you have?
All right, so I have like 7 years of experience, and I don't think like the necessarily difference between like being a senior or mid-level like has to do with the years of experience, because like I know people who like were like 3 years in a job, and I was like, you are clearly better than like everyone else here, but like a lot of the stuff that comes with being a senior is less technical and more like, you know, just overall leadership. Like the higher you get, the less it's about being an individual contributor, and the more it's about like how you affect the team.
Yep.
Leadership skills, stuff like that.
True.
Yeah.
So you both consider yourselves like mid-senior, like mid-senior, senior?
No, I'm definitely senior.
Senior. At 7 years, at
9, going on 9.
Going on 9 years.
Yeah.
Alex?
Say I'm mid.
Mid? How many years of experience do you have?
Say about 3 or 4.
3 or 4? See? All right, we got 3 or 4 years of experience. Consider yourself mid. Candace?
I feel like a junior.
How many years of experience?
So I just became full time. I just graduated from UMBC.
Yeah.
Hey.
What'd you study there?
I studied computer science, and it was very difficult. But yeah, so I recently became full time, and I feel like a junior, and I am a junior, so I think that's appropriate.
What did you do? So Candace is on the team that I'm on. So Candace just got hired on full time as a DevOps, but she was here since the beginning of the project for 3 years as a test engineer. So she's been adjacent to a lot of things that we do for a long time. I think that's an important caveat. But so we do have someone very junior to DevOps for the same stuff that we've been learning over the 12 weeks here. So if you have any questions specifically for Candace, that will be a good resource for everyone to kind of hop in. I think she might have some insight that we might not have for you.
Mm.
So my last 3 roles have all had the word senior in it, so I suppose that's what I would say.
You're senior.
That being said, I think how I see myself, that's like maybe how others see me or the title that I have, but how others maybe see me or how I think others maybe see me.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like as like, I would say I'm like mid-level, just in the sense that this is such a vast field and there is so much to know, and you will never really know everything. So, or even close to it. So the more, it's definitely like, it sounds a little cliche, but it's one of those things that the more you know, the more you realize there is to know.
Yep.
And that's the journey that I feel like I'll probably be on for the rest of my career.
So that was really great. We're going to get Malcolm in a second, but I think I did one of the streams. I think I talked about the Dunning-Kruger Effect, and that was exactly what he was just talking about there. Like the more you know, there's like this effect in the middle where it's like like now that I know there's so much out there, like I don't really know that much, and you get a little bit worried, and that can affect a lot of things. But hopefully it's good hearing that from someone who is a senior, who's had senior in their title for the last 3 months. Also, hopefully you guys watched my YouTube video about imposter syndrome, for him to say basically like I feel like a mid, I feel like I'm kind of a mid. It's take all that to account as we talk a little bit deeper. Take all that into account.
For me, I would say sometimes I feel junior, sometimes I feel mid-level, but I only have like 1 year in the industry, so I would say like only thing from like junior to mid, I feel like junior you have to be like told like how to do stuff, and I'm trying to work on mid-level where that's like you can like just be told what to do, and then you can like do it with like
Do it how you want to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I do want to know who in here, and this is gonna be interesting. Who has a software degree in here?
You mean like a computer science?
Yeah, computer science.
Does a minor count?
Sure.
A CS minor.
A degree in computer science, because there's a question I get asked a lot.
So can I?
Yeah.
My undergraduate degree is not in tech or anything tech related. I started my career and went on several years before I then got a graduate degree. So I still consider myself.
So you're self-taught?
Self-taught. Exactly.
Whoa, that's interesting. That's impressive, bro.
That's
impressive.
That is impressive. I do not have a computer science degree. That's why I usually like to ask. Just to kind of level set with people. You'll meet people who went to Bootcamp. You'll meet people who are self-taught. People who have software engineering degrees. I'm hopping to, I think Shug had a good question here. But this isn't for everyone, but if anyone wants to answer, do you feel like that was valuable for you? And do you feel like you've gotten a lot of use out of it currently?
I got this one. So I feel strongly about this in general, that like my computer science degree was helpful in certain senses and completely useless in most. And what I mean by that is like I had like experience with like tech, like I like doing like video games and like downloading stuff and being on the internet. So I had like experience from that perspective. But before I went to college, I had never programmed anything in my entire life. And so it was like a nice introduction for me. But like in terms of like concrete skills I learned that I was actually able to like go on the job force with, so I was like completely useless. That said, like my school had like these mandatory internships, so like being forced to go on the internships in order to graduate was like the part that made me like actually be better.
Where'd you go?
So I went to RIT in upstate New York.
I don't know, man. I feel like a lot of that theory stuff is.
I broke everything. Hold on.
Oh.
Hold on. I broke it all. 1 second. I was trying to move everything to the left so I could take down people's. All right, we're fixed again, kinda. Might be a little off center, but like you'll be all right. All right, there we go. Just go for
We're
it.
good? Are we live?
We are live. We're definitely live. There's 52 people now. Just so you
Okay.
guys know.
All right.
So don't mess
I don't
up.
even know what I'm saying, man.
Sorry, because I broke
Do you
it.
feel like
Oh.
the degree is useful?
I feel like the degree was, well, a lot of that theory stuff was kind of useless, maybe. You know what I mean? Because they do teach you a lot, like theory and all that stuff. Like, at least that they did at Georgia Southern. And that stuff is completely useless because I haven't used that in any job anywhere. But I don't regret going to college and learning that stuff because I don't know if I had the discipline to sit down and do a coding academy at 18, 19. I didn't. I had to be told to go to this class, do this lab, you know what I mean, to actually get a skill set.
I don't regret going. I regret how much it costs. Like real talk.
So I completely agree with you on like the fact that I don't have the discipline for myself, but I never programmed before I got to college. That's the first time like I ever started coding, and that's like why I am where I am today. But I definitely didn't have the discipline to sit down
19?
and do it by myself.
Hard.
No, I mean I definitely feel like all the algorithm stuff and like the high level
sure.
theory stuff, like a lot of it is not useful, but it also depends on what you're doing, right?
Right.
True.
If you're doing web dev, then yeah, like learning a lot of computer like science theory is not super useful. If you're doing like game dev, then like yeah, it's super useful.
Big notation comes in. Yeah.
It all like depends on like what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the what you learn in like the formal school is like algorithms and data structures, and they call that like the fundamentals. And it's true because it's like that's the fundamental constructs that computer science is based on. But day to day, you're making library calls. You're writing code to get shit done. Like you're not.
Yeah,
Right.
Sorry about
No.
Yeah.
All good. All good.
You're not necessarily like engineering at that level, with some exceptions. Like you said, like game dev is a little more heavy in that area. If you're doing things for like a really big tech company at scale, you probably need to
true.
really understand that stuff. So for me, it's like, if you're not sure if you're like what you're passionate about, or you're not sure if this is just something that you're dabbling in or something that you want to make a career decision off of, it's not the time to like pick that as your major and double down for 4 years. It's the time to like start building things,
Right.
like just
Yeah.
playing with the technology, see if you like it. Where it comes in handy is like if you really do know that like you want to have a career in tech, and then on top of that, on top of your sort of skills to make things happen, you want to learn you want to fill in the gaps.
The
That's where
base.
the formal education
Yeah.
does. I mean, knowing the algorithms, knowing the data structures, knowing all the fundamentals is not going to hurt you.
Yeah, I work with a lot of people who had your exact like path, or like they did an undergrad in something, or like just somehow got into the field, and then later on they're like, oh, I have gaps in my knowledge base, until they like did a master's program or went back.
Real quick, what was your undergrad? Someone asked specifically what was your undergrad?
Economics.
Economics. So the CTO, as you refer to as the CTO, because you're our CTO, economics undergrad. Did anyone have anything they wanted to add about that?
On that topic though, in college, didn't y'all, at least for me, did y'all feel like y'all were teaching yourselves? Because in my classes, it was just get this program done next week, and I had to learn how to code it. I had to learn how to do all that stuff. So you're essentially teaching yourself anyway.
But isn't
It's
that
like
what
teaching
you
you
do
for the
every
field,
single
yeah.
day though? Like isn't
You
that
gotta
what
learn how to
you-
learn, right?
But also, it's like frowned upon to like use stacking
my
material
tuition money.
to like get your code done.
I
and
mean,
stuff.
you went to a terrible school, dude.
I mean, well,
No, yeah, it was also for me. It was also frowned upon to like. It was like, hey, you'll find these answers online, but like, use the docs, use your book, do your best. And I understand, but like, I think that's
My school straight up told me, they're like, yeah, like obviously don't just like Google like a solution and like copy and paste it. Well, know if you do that, but like definitely like ask questions on Stack Overflow. I was terrible at programming until after like my third year. I spent all my time in the computer science tutoring center. To the point where I just knew everyone there, and like I just got help from other students.
Yeah, I was in the TA's office a lot, and I had a TA who told me that computer science was about learning how to Google and do a lot of Googling.
Yeah, the dirty little secret is that like every engineer is self-taught. The only difference is if you're in school, you're getting graded, and maybe you're paying a lot of money.
That's a good way to look at
it.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yes. Okay. I think every conversation is going to end up circling back to.
What just happened?
We just don't work this way. I think every conversation is going to ultimately end back somewhere around here. One of the questions that was asked is what tech stack have you seen the most, like in your career so far? People with like what have you kind of seen the most? 'Cause we all know tech changes up real fast. We learned 90 different things in this 12 weeks. Like, what have you seen the most?
My tech stack, Rails for front end. I mean, not for front end. React for front end, Rails for back end.
So we got Ruby, JavaScript. We got you had Node here.
I mean, definitely. So on the web, it's always going to be like some combination of JavaScript, HTML, and CSS in the front end. Like the framework is going to change like every 3 years when something else becomes popular. But I've seen a bunch of stuff in the back end, like a lot of Python, a lot of Java. Because I used to work for Oracle. Like my current company does Node and like Go and like Scala on the back end.
Scala, really?
Yeah, I like Scala. It's interesting, but like I've seen a lot of stuff. Like
I would definitely say Java. I've seen a lot of Java. There was a period where in my career I was like 3 or 4 years where it was just all .NET. Everybody was doing .NET.
.NET is a wonderful language.
Like it was, and I liked it because I came from Java, right? So they just improved on all Java stuff. They just did it better. But I'm mostly back end. I don't do any front end stuff. So
what about you guys? What do you guys see?
I've only seen one thing. Everything JavaScript, React, like.
JavaScript libraries come out every 3 years.
I've seen a lot of Django in the back end. It's like a Python like database. It's pretty cool. Like you can set it up pretty quickly, and it has like already like authentication for you. Like as soon as you like spin it up.
Take care of everything.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different stuff. LAMP stack, so your WordPress, your Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stacks. I've seen, like right now I'm working on a Node, JavaScript, React application. I've seen Golang, Python, all kinds of Python apps, a little bit of Ruby, done some .NET stuff as well. Java a lot. Like everyone usually has some kind of Java thing somewhere in their system. And a lot of Java as well.
Company has Cold Fusion running right
now. Bigger the company, the bigger possibility they'll have some Cold Fusion running.
We're trying to kill it off so bad.
So old.
Like, we have Cold Fusion. It's great.
2003?
Oh yeah, I see 2 frames drop. That was because my computer was running 40 different things at once. I just closed a bunch of stuff. But as long as the audio's stable, that's great. But the government loves Drupal. That's why I was typing when everything started dying. We won't skip 2 frames. Okay, so in that, we just talked about the stacks that we've seen. Currently in the market, what do you think are some stacks people should be studying or learning? You know, if they're trying to get in the industry or they're trying to expand their career, what do you think they should be learning right now?
Python's always a good language.
I agree.
It will never go out of style. I think it's a good, solid language, especially if you're learning how to program. It's not too difficult, like that hump, that initial learning curve, and it's useful. You know, you can do some powerful stuff with Python. And I think if you learn that, the syntax isn't too crazy, and you can learn other languages pretty, seamlessly. I think. I wouldn't start with Java. They had us start with Java in college. I didn't mind, but it was like a weeding out program. Like it was 100 kids, and then it was like 30. You know, everybody quit Java. I would say Python.
I think if you're doing something really specific, or if you're interested in mobile, right? So then you'd be doing like Swift, or you'd be doing like Android stuff. Would be like Kotlin and Java. But like if you're doing something heavy in like data science or data analytics, Python's a great way to go. Excellent language. If you just kind of don't know what you're doing or what you want to do, and you just want to pick something that's pretty versatile, JavaScript is just, in my opinion, a safe bet because it's the language of the web. It's the only language that I'm aware of that like all browsers natively understand. So you can do front end in JavaScript, and nothing's gonna like supplant JavaScript for a long time to come, at least on the front end. And of course, with the rise of Node.js in the last 10 years or so, it's like gone from what was like kind of like a toy language where you just make a little bit of things happen to like a serious engineering tool. And like real backends are being built in Node.js. So like you can do a lot with JavaScript these days, and it's like a pretty safe choice as far as programming languages go.
I agree.
Despite being, last point I'll make on that topic, despite being a little, it's deceptively simple. Like it feels simple. Like you can get a lot done without knowing a lot with JavaScript, but you quickly realize that there's actually a decent amount of complexity, more so maybe in a certain way than like Python, which is a little more straightforward.
I think there's like two separate questions, right? Because there's like the what should you learn to like best position you to get a job, and there's like what is the easiest thing to learn, right? JavaScript is like kind of the answer for both of them because like definitely if you're trying to get a job, like JavaScript's the best thing to learn because you can do full stack, just with JavaScript, right? Back end, front end, and everything. But JavaScript's ecosystem is so complicated that like it's really easy to end up being like, oh, I've been doing this forever, and like I still don't know how to set stuff up because like there's just 17 bajillion tools.
Libraries and nonsense in the background.
Yeah, and how they all play with together or don't. So.
Would you say JavaScript is a good language to start out learning? I posed you that question too.
So if you want to do the web, if you know you want to do the web stack, like if you want to get into web development, I would say yes, because it's inevitable. You can't do web development without at least getting into JavaScript at some layer. That being said, like if there's two competing schools of thought. There's like what's the most useful and what's got the shallowest learning curve. Like I think Python in terms of just like the how clean the syntax is, like the way they use white space, just the way it reads, like it's a very good language to start with. Let me put it this way: it's the language you're least likely to get discouraged with. I think if you start with, which is saying like that's a good place to start.
Okay,
go ahead.
I want to hear from you, and then I have a question specifically for you. Well, go for it.
Okay, I was gonna say, so I've done Python and a little bit of JavaScript, and JavaScript was a little bit intimidating to me because it's just like weird little shorthand ways to do things, and it just like was really confusing to me. So that was my thing with JavaScript. But yeah, I love Python.
Okay, so for the last 11 weeks, people on the stream we've been talking about software because obviously all this stuff is all part of the software development lifecycle, DevOps. But we have been learning DevOps from I know what tools and technologies that I would let people I would advise that people learn. And I think I've kind of just shown that through what I chose to use throughout the process. But from engineers, from software engineers who are writing application code and also participating in the DevOps workflows. From your point of views, what do you see as tools or technologies that someone in DevOps should learn specifically from your point of view? What are some tools you would recommend?
Kubernetes, absolutely.
Kubernetes, K8s. Yeah. Go back, that was like 3 streams ago.
Kubernetes has changed my entire life. Kubernetes and Docker are the greatest things anyone's ever invented. They changed my whole development experience. We used to run Oracle, and Oracle was famous for having these really large, giant, heavy systems that just eat up your computer. They take all your CPU, all your RAM, and with Kubernetes, I can just put it all in the cloud and still have the same experience as if I was doing it locally. It's great. That we set up services so fast now, and also so my job has on-call rotation. So when we have a service go down, I get pinged at 4 o'clock in the morning, and so the ability to just be it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to actually fix this. I'm just gonna make more pods and just do it in 6 seconds and wash my hands and go back to sleep.
But you still gotta get up, though.
I mean, you still have to get up, but we set up all kinds of stuff to limit that. We have auto scaling on the pods, but you can set a max limit, so you don't have to worry about waking up and suddenly there's 6,000 pods.
Gotcha.
Kubernetes is
set little triggers and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we have anytime the CPU hits a certain point, we spin up a new pod.
Gotcha.
Anytime you start running out of memory, we have auto sharding set up.
I'm gonna say, like, if you're serious about DevOps, get your Linux fundamentals down, because like Kubernetes, incredibly powerful tool, it's done wonders for people in the trade. But like, you know, all these tools, like so many of these tools, Docker is fundamentally like built on top of Linux, and like to really use it to use it in its full capacity, like you probably want to understand some of how Linux uses like the file system and so on. So, and that's something that actually took me way too long in my career to like make the transition over to like starting to like really dabble in Linux and understand Linux. And I wish I had done it. Somebody had like helped me, push me to do that sooner in my career, because I'm not an expert, but like just even knowing basics like shell scripting,
Basic commands.
and like exactly basic commands, it's just like it just changed the game.
Yeah, it's interesting because I started off in Linux. Like my first couple of jobs, I think 2 jobs, was just all Linux, right? So I didn't have a choice, so I had to learn it. It's interesting. I want to know, do you think it's better to start on Linux or start on Windows and try to learn Linux later?
I wholeheartedly,
Linux.
100% learn Linux. So Windows, every platform, like Linux is so important that Windows literally ships a Linux kernel inside of Windows now, because it's that important. Learn Linux. You can get it on any platform. Like you need to learn Linux. So you can definitely do it on a Windows. You can do it from any operating system. You can learn Linux. You don't have to be running Linux to learn it. I know it's intimidating. You know, there are a lot of caveats that come with running Linux full time. But again, it's got to be a virtual machine. The Windows subsystem for Linux. Macs are Unix based, so you can get a lot of that. You can learn everything you really need to know. You can learn it straight from a Mac if you just grab a Mac. But I think Linux is the most. I think it's the great. You can get jobs doing just Linux. So if your goal is to learn all this stuff, it's a lot to learn, and you want to be able to get into the industry. I think if you're going to focus on one thing, I do think either Linux or dive hard into a programming language. I think are the two. But Linux is very close to my heart. That was my very first job, Linux administrator. That was my gateway into it. But I feel very strongly about learning Linux.
I feel like every time I level up, it's because I've learned a new thing I can do on Linux that makes my life simpler.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's not that hard.
And I've been turned away from jobs that I had like a lot of qualifications for, but because I didn't know Linux, like earlier in my career. Like, and not to say every employer values it that highly, but like it doesn't matter whether you're doing, you know,
it's a real thing.
Almost any type of engineering, like Linux is going to be useful to know.
We have like 4 or 5 people in my office out of like hundreds who are still on Windows, like for dev, and it's like such a pain in the ass because we set everything up and it runs the same on Mac or the same on Linux, and then we have to like jump through hoops to make it work right on Windows. And but those 4 people need it, and we're just like, you make everyone's life simpler if you just like were to leave this Windows behind and take this nice Mac switch.
Someone had an interesting question, which I like a lot. Is Regex a language? I read. So does someone want to take a shot at explaining what Regex is?
I suck at regular expressions.
Regular expressions, it's terrible.
Yeah. So regular expressions are ways. I don't want to give you wrong information, but regular expressions are ways to express patterns, to be able to do things with text.
That's a good definition.
I mean, you can do a lot with it.
It's a pattern matching like API basically. Yeah, like that. That's what it's set up for, to like match a pattern and then do stuff with that pattern. Whether it's like replace it, find it, modify it. But like that's what it's for. Like you set up a pattern and then you like match it, and it's basically just like gibberish.
Yeah, it's very finicky. It is powerful, but it's hard to get great at. I think it's hard to get great at. It's a problem for a lot of people. Usually you have to look up everything. It's not a language, but it's a tool.
Regex 101.
And knowing it is knowing it's good. If you're someone who's a Perl developer, you're probably good with this. I find that people who did Perl are great at regexes. And
Perl is also gibberish.
But yes, Perl's also gibberish. But yeah, I mean, it's not a language, but it is a tool, and it is useful. It's very useful. You will have to use it, but not all the time. It's not something you'll be using every single day, but it is valuable to know, for sure.
It's more important to know when to use it than to like know, like have all the patterns memorized.
Yes.
you can usually like when you know you need it, so you spend an hour and you kind of you slap something together and you test it out in a couple different ways and you get it working. That's what's important.
Yep.
Hopefully 10 minutes and not an hour, but
Yeah. Okay. So we're going into this. Someone already asked questions that are kind of moving into Wednesday, but for everyone, like, what are some common interview questions you've gotten, or that people should expect, that you kind of see kind of across the board?
Can you code what's that Fibonacci number?
Ooh,
They
So-
ask that a lot.
well, it's not hard, but
It's not.
but one, you got to remember what Fibonacci is.
Well,
Yes.
they'll generally explain the Fibonacci sequence.
Good. If you're a hiring professional and you're not explaining what Fibonacci is,
You're messing up.
you're messing up because these things are easy to forget.
Is
Whiteboard
it
test,
recursive or iterative?
Man.
Oh, it's recursive.
So
You guys are nerds.
So, all right, for real
Gotta be
talk,
recursive,
like,
bro.
so my last company, that was like, when we interviewed people, that was the first question we always asked. Well, we always asked FizzBuzz because like, we hired a lot of junior people. But the second question was always like, all right, do Fibonacci.
Yeah.
And then depending on how fast you did it, we'd be like, oh, so you did this recursively. You can also do it iteratively. Can you do it the other way? So we make them do both, basically.
I don't think I've done it iteratively, only recursively.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's one of those things I'm like
That's
Is it
just
not
triple
harder
up.
recursively? I feel like.
well, it's so, because like the problem is like a lot of colleges teach it now.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's like a lot of people can just do it
Just
from
memorize
memory.
it.
So it's like you have to do it the other way to prove that they actually like. So if you do it in like 6 seconds, I'm like, okay, you've seen this before. Like, do it the other way.
Dude,
Oh, they gotta slow down, man.
Slow
down.
That's some advice right there. You know,
Speaking
if you know how to do
down.
something real fast, slow it down just a bit. You know, so
Like you
Yeah.
think.
slow down
That's clever.
just a little bit.
So,
So
someone
so
asks
that
you
you
a question,
memorize
just
it.
immediately start smiling, being like, "Yeah, I just saw this."
I just saw this.
You
Yeah.
got
put
you
your
got
head
a good
down
poker
and-
face.
Yeah, be like,
Got your poker face when you're on interviews.
FizzBuzz is good. We did FizzBuzz during the Golang piece, so go back and watch the Golang stream if you want to know how to do FizzBuzz. Like a very basic FizzBuzz implementation. It is in there if you want to go back. Sam, did you have something?
yeah, I have a kind of a different philosophy with interviews. I don't really ask like whiteboarding questions very much. Not that it's wrong to ask them. There's different trains of thought there, but I tend to ask people in experience-based questions. So I'll look at your resume and zoom in on something that you claim to know well, right? And I will, obviously it has to be something that I know at least a thing or two about, or else I can't even really, like, credibly ask you questions, but I'll ask things that you should know. Like, if you say you know X, then you would have to know Y.
Gotcha.
Right? So the point I'm making is, like, make sure that anything you put on your resume, you can credibly speak to. If somebody's going to call you out on that and you're going to be puzzled, that's a big red flag for an interviewer.
Yep, take it off.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. There's things that I've done at jobs that I didn't feel comfortable enough to put on my resume because it was like 2 years ago. Just because I could get grilled about it, and I don't want to put that on there, and then just have the dumb face. Yeah, that's a big one, man. And also, don't put anything on your resume that you don't want to do.
Yeah, that's
That's
very
a big
true.
one too.
Or be asked about.
Yeah.
Right,
Or be asked about.
man.
Okay. So from the DevOps side of things, generally you like almost always across the board. I've been in a lot of DevOps interviews, and generally people ask questions about. I get a lot of questions about scaling infrastructure. So people kind of just ask me my approach to. They usually give you like a little scenario, like, hey, we've got this application and we need it to be highly available, and it's running with this kind of database or something like that. How would you kind of set that up? So people ask a lot of infrastructure related questions. I find in most DevOps interviews, and I think that's partially because I would say that 80% of DevOps jobs, they're actually looking for some type of infrastructure engineer. No matter how you do it, they're looking for someone to manage the infrastructure. It's not always the case. We talk about the differences between kind of that infrastructure engineer and what a true DevOps engineer versus site reliability engineer. We talk about that stuff, but generally those are questions you're going to get asked, stuff about that. People will ask you a lot of cloud questions nowadays. Usually Amazon focused, but if anyone did not see that Microsoft actually won the Jedi, the big Jedi Pentagon project, so I'm sure a lot of people were going to be asking Azure questions and hiring for Azure as well. So our timing was poor, but we will at the next iteration we will definitely be doing some Azure stuff because I guarantee you, especially if you're in the DC, Baltimore, Virginia area, there will be some Azure jobs opening up real soon. So that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, a lot of cloud questions, a lot of high level infrastructure questions. Kind of make sure you've seen the way the infrastructure actually works is usually what I see. Is usually what I see.
Do you see different questions depending on the level? Like for engineering, you always get different questions like for when you're hiring for a junior versus a senior.
Yeah. So for that's a great point. For junior level, and also going off of the experience that we have here when we're kind of hiring, we'll generally ask one we actually here at Fearless, we actually don't put you through any technical anything super technical because I think we do a fairly good job of finding out if you know. We want to know that you've done what you say you've done. We kind of dig into what you've put on your resume and kind of how you answer the questions. So you say you've done Docker, we might dive into a few Docker questions and maybe ask you something like, hey, maybe do you know the difference between a Docker container and a virtual machine? Can you articulate that at all? And it's okay if you can't, but talk about that a little bit and say, hey, you talk about you did this with Docker containers, how did you save the data? What did you do? What did you do to save the data? Just to kind of see if you can say, we don't really care. We know how you save the data, but we want to know if you can articulate that, hey, Docker containers, the storage is not persistent by default, and we mounted volumes or we did something like that. So it's kind of just digging into your overall knowledge of some of these things, and I think people will generally ask things like that, I think the questions are along the same lines. I think they'll still be infrastructure related, but they'll more be like, hey, have you ever done anything inside of EC2, which is a VM in the cloud, and then you can kind of just expound upon that. And just as people do that, harp on what you know. So people will ask you a lot of questions and they'll throw a lot of buzzwords in there. Hang on to something in that conversation, something that you know of that they said, and talk about that. You can control where it goes. We'll talk about that a lot next time, but the things that you know, harp on those things. Don't let the conversation go to the stuff that you have no idea about. Stick to the stuff that you know. But that's just specifically DevOps. Those are generally the kind of questions I get. I don't actually get I haven't seen too many tough coding interviews. People aren't going to ask you Fibonacci. I've seen people ask nowadays. People ask hey, we need 3 instances spun up and we need to have this stuff installed. Write me some Terraform and write me some Ansible to do that. And that's what I've that is what people are doing nowadays, which is interesting. The one good thing about that is that if you've done it manually, I think it's a little bit easier to figure out infrastructure code than it is to figure out software problems. Personally, if you've done it before, I think it's a little more intuitive to move to that infrastructure as code piece. But so you might be asked to do something like that for sure.
What about non-technical questions?
Oh, non-technical questions, very important. People are usually just going to want to know a little bit about you. Technical piece is one part. People are going to want to know who you are. So don't be afraid. Do your best not to be afraid to show that up, unless you're into some weird stuff. Try to. That's relative. It's relative, but show off your personality. If you're super passionate about hey, I love guitars and I like tech, but I play guitar every day, and I don't even want to write music, but I just love learning how to play faster and better, or I love animals and I have 12 gerbils. Speak about those things and speak passionately about those things. I think gerbils are fine. 12. But those softer questions.
Did we freeze?
It's TV. It's probably. Oh, that's because I did that a long time ago.
I see a lot. Or at least we ask a lot of non-technical questions that are
still related to the job though, right?
Yeah. We ask a lot of stuff about teamwork and times where you've been stuck and how you stuff to figure out how you problem solve what's your go-to for resources,
your biggest accomplishment and all this stuff. And
I hate that question.
I hate it too.
I hate it. It's such a bad question.
So I like to kind of piggybacking on what you said. I often like to ask people about a situation where they face a really challenging engineering problem and how they solved it. And it's less about what approach they took and just hearing that they had a methodical, thoughtful process where they could actually tell me why they made the decisions they did and what they learned out of it. So go into an interview with at least, I would say, 2 experiences, and it could be something pretty technical, I refactored this part of the code base that was making too many database calls because it was inefficient in a particular situation. So we cleaned it up in this way, and you articulate what you did and how. That just says so much that someone can articulate what they did, why they did it, and how they made it better.
Being able to communicate too.
Exactly.
Yeah, you get that across. That's interesting. What about somebody who's a junior who doesn't have I don't know, 6 years of experience, would you say they should just talk about those times maybe when they were in college and they were stuck on a particular problem because that's all they had? Or maybe they didn't go to college. Like, for somebody junior, how do they do that?
So, take it. I want you to take it.
Oh, I think it's what you said earlier. It's like harp on the things you know. Like,
And don't pretend to know stuff.
Well, it's like, so if I ask you a technical question, like, it's hard to like get around the technical aspects of it. But like when I'm asking, like, you know, questions that aren't necessarily tech related, like, you know, you have to go back to when you do. If I say, yo, tell me a time where you know had a disagreement with a teammate and how do you guys solve it? Yeah. Okay, so maybe if you have experience, you're going to talk about a time where you guys had a technical challenge and you didn't know what the best way to like solve it was. But sometimes if you don't have that, you know, you say, oh, you know, like at this one job I had, we had, you know, a similar situation. We weren't writing code, but, you know, we were building something. We were doing this, or like maybe I was in a group at school, or, you know, on a sports team, or whatever. Like, I mean, you just have to, like, those questions aren't meant to like be like
tech related.
They're meant to show that you have that you can, you know, work through a problem as a part of a team, right? Or you can like problem solve, or like stuff like that. Like, it's not necessarily always like show me the tech things. If you have tech, you know, background or like tech experience, that's great, but like it's not necessarily for that.
I really needed this when I was going through that, being a junior. I needed something like this, man, to help me. Dang, that's good advice.
So there's actually a good amount of questions that have been asked. So we're gonna move a little bit faster through them just to make sure we kind of get to people's questions. But we already talked about it just a little bit. Doug talked about it a little bit earlier. What do anyone have any strong opinions about Kubernetes?
I would like to learn it. I would like to learn Kubernetes because I feel like it's in really high demand right now. And you get paid a lot because you know how to use Kubernetes. But I feel like it might be a little bit overwhelming for me at this point, so I don't know.
I kind of, to be perfectly honest, think that the hype train has gotten a little ahead of things with Kubernetes. It's a really, let me walk that back. It is a really important technology, and there's no question it's like part of the future of computing at scale. At scale though, like if you're doing toy projects at home, you don't need Kubernetes. If you're doing hobby stuff, Kubernetes is overkill. It's kind of like it's like a giant, like, you know, what do you call it? Like sledgehammer, when all you need is like, you know, like a little tapper or something like that. So, you know, it is in high demand, and if you're really doing DevOps, like serious, like if that's where you want to go and you want to deploy infrastructure at scale, then Kubernetes is worth learning. But like more from a software engineering background, I'm not necessarily convinced it's something you should start with early on.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's like the first thing you should learn if you're doing software development. Like if you want to like program, like I'd say obviously learn programming first, but like I do think it's great for like small projects, like even side projects, because like, you know, they have like that Reddit hug of death, right? When your thing randomly gets posted and it dies because you were used to having 100 people view it a week and suddenly you have like 100 million viewing it in a day. So like Kubernetes is great for that because you can just, you know, easily scale stuff up. I also think it's a great tool for like CI/CD too.
And there's a CI/CD question, so, but keep on.
No, I mean, I was just saying, it's like to me, like as a developer, like CI/CD to me is like the greatest thing ever because I know that any task I do, like immediately is going to end up in production, and like Kubernetes makes that really. I won't say it makes it easy, but like once you get it all set up, it makes for a very smooth experience.
So for anyone who missed the CI/CD stream, CI/CD stream, what's CI/CD?
So CI/CD is continuous integration, and then the CD part is continuous deployment.
What's the second CD?
I don't know.
You didn't watch my stream. You're my friend. No. Yeah, continuous.
Cry daily.
Oh, did something happen? Continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment. They don't need to be two different CDs, but sometimes when you're learning, it's good to disseminate between the two. But no big deal.
That's fair. Continuous delivery and deployment are different.
Yeah, they are different, but no big deal. Again, check back 2 streams. We went over all this stuff, so you have some resources for that. Okay, so someone did ask a question about hiring for CI and CD. Basically, someone said they're hiring for, I think it was actually Ninja Pimp, or Pimp Ninja. Basically said they're hiring for a CI/CD gap. Basically, they have a gap in their CI/CD, I guess, workflow. So they're hiring someone to fill that gap. What kind of questions do you think they should ask? I'll start this one off, just because I feel kind of passionate about this. But again, we're talking about this CI/CD process, and this CI/CD process is how do you get your code from the developers' laptops out into the world, into production, where people can see it in an efficient, reliable way. And so I think when you have that gap, the kind of questions you should ask, I think first are to one, I think everyone looks for someone who knows the tools. I think it's great if you know Jenkins. I think it's great if you know Circle. I think it's great if you know Travis. But if you don't understand the software development life cycle, I think it's difficult for someone to fill that gap. So, I mean, the questions that I would start out with would be ones about developing software, kind of ensuring that someone really does understand, you know, what version control is and like what a workflow, like maybe ask a few questions about, you know, Git workflows or something like that, just to kind of see if they're familiar, you know, with, I don't know what's this phone now, familiar with kind of how version control works and maybe using SVN or something else, but how, you know, managing that code base works. And I don't know, followed up with questions about software testing, because that's really important, and just kind of just see what they're familiar with. Again, they don't need to know how to write software tests, but I think they need to be familiar with some software testing framework that like they can at least say, hey, like I've set up CI/CD for this. I understand that there are these frameworks that you can use to test your functions inside of your code, and we need to run those things. And what kind of tests might run in a CI/CD pipeline? You know, you got linters and you've got your unit tests, things like that. Just to kind of test again that they know the pipeline, and then maybe questions about again deploying things to various environments, and maybe talk about like any experience. You know, how do you get code? You know, just to a developer environment. How do you know? How do you set up gates to go to staging and production? But I think the questions have to be less about CI and CD, like those tools, and more about the broad process of the way the code flows. I think that's something that people miss out on. I've been on teams that were hiring release engineers and kind of CI CD engineers, and they asked purely questions related to tooling, like, hey, how much do you know about Jenkins? Like, I think that's important. Wow. But without, especially in the bigger the organization, without that context of how software is really developed and how it moves through the pipeline, I think it's very difficult for that person to really fill the gap that you have. Anyone else?
I think the only thing I would add to that is that, like, when we've done it before, past places I've worked, we started at the end, because for us, how good are you, or what do you know, what do you have a plan, what do you think about, getting code out of production when you break something? Because, like, the whole point of CI/CD is that, like, you automatically, like, as soon as, like, you make a commit, everything goes from there to production through the testing process, like, one click. That's the goal. But, like, with that, you inevitably run into times where, like, you've broken production because something made it there that shouldn't have, or something that got out wasn't as well tested as you wanted it to be. So, like, we always ask, like, okay, like, skipping the whole pipeline process, skipping all these steps, say you've gotten something into production, like, what is your opinions on, like, the best way to pull something out?
Yeah, and there are a lot of answers to that, but I think I also agree that's a good question. Those are questions. All right, let's move on to, does anyone have any information or any, like, insight about DevSecOps roles? So everyone, just like everything else, they've been kind of tagging on this kind of buzzword like junk here. So we have DevOps, now we have DevSecOps. So that's Dev security, it's developer security operations, like a gem of all those things. It's kind of a new thing. To be 100% honest with you, I think that DevSecOps is not a well-defined thing right now. Neither is DevOps, though, to be 100% honest. But I think DevSecOps is I think it's part of the hype train, like Kubernetes is a little bit. And basically, it's infrastructure people who are a little more security focused, and you're supposed to put that into the pipeline and automate your security. I think there's a lot of overlap in what everyone does in that regard. I don't have any specific things there. I think you will get paid a little more for it, to be honest, definitely. And move to somewhere where there's a lot of government contractors, because you will get a role doing DevSecOps, because security is a thing.
Yes, go ahead, man.
Oh, sorry. I think the key thing about DevSecOps is, like, you may have heard this term shift left, and that is that security what used to be this thing that happened after the development process, and it wasn't great, but you could kind of get away with it for a long time because that's just how the pace at which software evolved was slow enough that like you could after the fact shoe in a little bit of a security layer on top. Now it just moves so fast, it's so fluid, and it's just so complex that security has shifted left. It's become the domain of everybody involved in the project. So again, you're absolutely right. Aaron's right that like DevSecOps, what that means today in 2019, it's a little hazy. It'll probably become more clear as the years go on, and the industry will kind of rally towards like clearly defining those roles. But the key thing I think is just like it's maybe not something to start with like on your journey, but like before you get too deep into it, probably learn some security fundamentals. Probably like start to understand what the different ways that different types of vulnerabilities and exploits and ways that people can break into a system so that you can protect against it.
I totally agree with that, and I'm actually experiencing that now. Being at Fearless is the first time where security, at least on this project, is the first time where we're considering security as we develop.
Yeah.
And even when we open up the PRs, you got to put what's the security implication for this particular code. Like I never did that anywhere. It's crazy. I mean, I'm not crazy. I'm not knocking it, but it's definitely extra. It's it's an extra step. So you're so right about that. It's like ingrained in the process now. I got a question about just being a developer and getting into DevOps. How important do you think it is for somebody like me to learn how to Dockerize stuff and do all this stuff? And is it super critical?
Do you want to like?
I don't want to do any of it.
Oh, so you don't? You're just trying to keep up. So I do think everyone is. I think that the skills are merging a bit. I think the lines are blurring a bit, in what you kind of have to know. I think Docker is a development tool.
I'm with you on Docker. I actually like Docker.
I think Docker's a development tool.
But I don't want to write Terraform. I don't want to do
any
of
that
that.
You don't want to do any of that.
Okay.
Most places. It's like, how senior do you want to be?
How senior do you want to be?
Because like,
I feel like
so a lot of places have like different teams, right? They have people who do that, but like you're like the higher you get, like the more often it's like, oh, like can you just like go off in the corner and like get this project started and it's just you and you're like, what would be great? I'd really love a Docker container right now. You're like, crap, I don't want to write it. But there's no one else to do it.
I get what you're saying, but I also feel like if you're really good at a certain thing, like this field is so like you can be like it's specialized, right? If you're a really good back-end engineer or front-end engineer, if you're really good, you can just do that and you'll have a job forever. At least that's how I feel. I feel like you don't have to be a jack of all trades. Yep. You can just be really good at one thing and be fine. I mean, there's still Java jobs out. There's still Pascal jobs out there. You know what I mean? Maybe not Pascal, but old programming languages.
I mean, that's the question is how high can you do it? Like go with that. You probably hit like I'm a platform engineer, but like, or I'm a lead engineer. Can you be an architect if you only know one thing? I don't know. Maybe
this is true. Yeah. You're right.
So it's a really important skill, especially if you want to operate at the senior level, right, where you're just expected to know these things. That being said, it's definitely not like a fundamental skill that you need to master to do basic things or to even be competent in like a junior or mid-level role. So that I would say wait till you need it. That's personally my opinion. Like wait till you get to a point where you're faced with a challenge where, gee, wouldn't it be nice if I just knew a little bit of Docker right now?
Yeah.
And then learn it. And you can. That's the other thing. Like you can learn these things in like the basics, not master it, but the basics. You can learn them in a weekend, a couple hours a night over the course of a week. Like they're not insurmountable. Like especially if you've learned a lot of things up to that point, your learning process will be a little more, a little quicker.
Yeah.
I like that.
Good point.
Okay, next question, and this is because you two are the most junior in the room, at least, or the closest to entry level. What do you think are some good things for people entering the tech industry, entering the market, to have on their resume? Like, what do you think is important to kind of highlight on there and put on there that'll give them kind of the edge, catch people's eye a little bit? And this may be tough for you, but I would like to, especially because you went through the process relatively recently, so like I would like to hear what was your process, like what you decided to put on your resume and what you think would be good for people to stick on their resume.
Well, I put like every language that I knew on my resume, but I don't think I should have did that. Because I did Scholar for like a 2-week project in school, and they started asking me like Scholar questions. I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was like a functional programming language. Yeah. But I would say you definitely need like a GitHub with like some projects on there, and that's like one of the most important ones. Just like showing that you like done some like projects if you haven't like had a job before, just like projects outside of like work and stuff would be like most important, I think.
How do you find? Well, actually,
I was gonna say for me, I had the languages I knew. I also had like a few projects that I had worked on that I feel like I like really understood them and like everything I did for them. That's pretty much what I had on my resume. But now I want to get some AWS stuff on my resume because I feel like that would make it look way better.
AWS.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talk about those projects. Talk about the projects that like you had on there. How do you find good projects to work on? Or like, I think that's one of the hardest things. You take some time, you learn Python. You're like, all right, I can write some loops. I can set some variables. I can make some decisions. What do I do with this now? Like, how do you go about finding the projects to work on?
Well, for me, like, when I do projects, it's just like, I think of something cool I want to do, and then it's like, oh, I gotta learn this to do the project, I guess. So one day I woke up, I was like, oh, I want to make a game. So I was like, oh, I gotta learn Unity. So it has to be like something that like, I wouldn't say like you're passionate about, really, like per se, but yeah, it helps to be passionate about it, but like just something cool you want to do, because like just like searching for like a project that somebody else thinks is cool, but you don't necessarily think is cool, like you won't have like a full vision of what you think the final product should be. But once you have that like vision of what you want it to be, then you can like navigate the project the way you want, and like you'll be able to like learn what you need to do to get what you want in the end result.
So definitely having a project is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think that's definitely very important. I didn't have that, and I don't know how I'm here, but I didn't have a project. I didn't have like my own GitHub or anything to really like showcase like that. But I do think that's important.
Get the work experience on there though.
Yes.
I think it's pretty much like find something in your life that you like, oh, it would be better if I could automate this. So you write a Python script and automate it. Like,
one kind of approach is actually just copy what other people have done, and usually that's not recommended. Like, why would you copy something? But with especially when you're getting started, right? So there's two advantages to copying. One is you don't have to figure out what the problem is because it's already defined, like someone else has built it. And two is after you build the thing, or maybe even while you're building the thing, you can look at how they did it and compare. So you can kind of see if your approach matched with theirs. So, and in the process, you'll learn so much about like how to methodically think through the problem. So you'll get a lot of value out of that. Of course, like once you get more advanced and you'll start having more inspiration of your own. It'll just come because, you'll have more abilities. Right. Exactly. So it'll expand your mind to what's possible, and that's when you can start really pursuing like more ambitious things that you're coming up with on your own.
I think that's phenomenal advice because I think one of the things that happens, especially from, I don't want to put the wall back up between dev and ops right now, but I think the way that software, people who have a traditional software background who have in software, I find that like when I was trying to learn software, like when I was moving from the ops side of things, like trying to learn software, and it's like, what do I practice now? Everyone was like, oh, like find a thing you want to solve. It's like, I don't care about anything. I don't care. Like I don't care about like, what do you mean solve this? And like even if I want to figure out how to solve it, like automate something in my life, like we would automate tweets. Like I don't know. There's already apps for that. But you're right. I think that you're all correct. But I think someone had to put it in a way, for me at least, that worked that way. And that's what I did. I used to watch videos, and then like they would be working through a project, and I would learn how to use the technology through a project that they were working on. And through that process, I would modify it and figure out how to work. I'm like, this is my project now. Like, I've done this, even though I copied off of you, I've done this. And I think that helps me be able to find those other things. Just from my point of view, I think you guys are right. I found that was tough for me when everyone was like, find something you're passionate about. And I was like, I don't even know what's possible here. So like, I don't even know where to even start. So I know that was very tough for me. And it's still tough for me. People ask me, what kind of project should I do? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what you can do. But open source projects, again, this is one, to me, this is along the same vein, but find some GitHub stuff that like maybe is interesting to you. And like, you don't have to contribute to it, but you can like, look for errors in the documentation and, figure out how to update those things and let them know. And you can slowly start to dive deeper and deeper into like, you can start at a very high surface level of things. All that stuff looks good on your resume. Say, hey, I could like I said, I'm about to release this open source project. You guys do a great job at finding spelling mistakes on my website in particular. So thank you. But no, that stuff's powerful. So like as these things come across, like putting in PRs for those, like you contributed to this project. Like that is something that you did. Put it on your resume. Like I added to this documentation. If you couldn't find any documentation, like if you're trying to use something, you're like, I can't find the things in the documentation that help me learn how to use this the way I want to use it. Once you figure that out, contribute to that documentation, right? Write a piece of that documentation that explains how to use it in the way that you'd like to use it. You can add to things that way as well. It doesn't always have to be, I've added this major feature that everyone can use now. It doesn't have to be quite that far for things like that.
What is your website?
It's academy.mastermind.io, and none of my friends follow me for anything, obviously. But okay, let's move on to the next question. Good Docker projects. I think this one's interesting. Like if you're trying to learn Docker, can anyone think of any good things to maybe Dockerize? That might be any good tools that you want to Dockerize or that would help you learn Docker a little better. And you just learned Docker, so maybe you have some insights.
I'm still like shaky on Docker.
That's fair. Yep. Nothing wrong with that.
I guess like setting up a web server with a database, like because you need like separate Docker containers and you have to like navigate how they like communicate with each other, stuff like that. So like something simple, like a simple website with like a web server, a database, and then I think there's something else that goes there, but I don't know.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, probably picking something that has like multiple levels of the architecture. Like your point, like maybe you have an application server, a database, and then you want to put like Nginx or something in front of it. That's like a web server. So you have 3 layers. You got to get it all talking to each other. Multiple containers. Like you're gonna learn a lot.
I agree with that. That's why I showed you guys the WordPress example when we were going over Docker Compose because WordPress has a database and it's really PHP and Apache, but they're kind of rolled into one. But like I think that's a good stack to start with, and you can kind of add things in there that you can add stuff on top of it. But it's a good starting point because I think WordPress is fairly approachable in terms of applications. Like there's a lot of documentation out there on it, so I think that's a good one to start with. How do you get? And so I think this goes along with the things that you need to have on your resume, but like. How do you get interviews and like what do you need to put in? I guess also in your resume to get interviews. We went over that, but like, how do you get interviews? I feel like that goes along with the question about what to put in your on your resume. But maybe we can shift that. So once you get the interview, especially if it's like one of your first ones, like what do you guys do to prepare for an interview?
Oh, that's a good question.
I'll tackle the how do you get interviews because like this is like my biggest piece of advice to everyone all the time is that like the way to get interviews is that you're not applying to enough jobs. Like 100%. Like I always have to say like do you have a full-time job? Okay, no, then your full-time job is applying to get a full-time job.
I agree.
Like if you're like being like I want to work at these 10 companies, so I'm only going to apply to these 10 companies. You're doing it wrong. You need to apply to like 100 jobs.
70.
Yeah, like every job you find, just apply to. Even if you don't think you meet other requirements, especially if you don't think you meet other requirements, apply to it.
Yeah. Apply to everything.
Also, sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, not only just applying to a whole bunch of jobs, but also networking and really just getting yourself out there, because I really think that if people like actually see your face, they know who you are, like it kind of puts in like a better word for yourself.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say like put your resume on dice.com, because you're gonna get like 100 calls from recruiters, but you're, like I would say like 1% of them is actually going like come into an interview, but you'll definitely like get a lot of experience with like the interviewing through that process.
Yeah, just get good at interviewing. It sounds kind of funny, but when you get good at interviewing and you get good at phone screens, because it's a very similar skill set in a lot of ways, you learn how to talk to people, you learn what to say, you gain more confidence. So just like do a lot of interviews, and you'll get better at interviews, and you'll get more of them, and then the more of them will actually lead to job offers.
There's like a whole art form to like applying to jobs, like tech jobs, and like making sure that your resume like passes the filters and looks good depending on what website you're posting to. Yeah, like keywords and like the product you put on and how you word things, and like what fields on the application you actually need to fill out. Like,
yeah, I really quantity early on. Quantity as a numbers game in the beginning. Send out your like jobs that don't even match what you think you want to do. I think in the beginning, again, mostly because that interview experience I think helps. Flood the market, like flood everything that comes out. Apply to all of it. It'll be daunting. You will get callbacks. You'll get someone who's willing to speak to you, guaranteed, with enough resumes. And again, you'll learn. You'll start to realize what people are asking for, and like you'll start to realize like, oh, like these are. You'll start to find out things you're strong at, that you can, answer those questions quick, and you can talk about. And again, remember I told you can steer that conversation. So start to pick up on those things. But also when people start asking you questions, and you're like, that feels like something I should know, but I don't know anything about it. When the interview's over, write that thing down and go watch a YouTube video on it. You don't need to know it super in depth, but just enough to say, hey, like this is what I know something about this topic that you asked me about. I don't know everything. It's okay to say that you don't know everything, but start to write those things down. But I think it's a numbers game. I think that's how you get good at interviewing. I know it's cliche, but like getting good at interviewing. That's what we're gonna be talking about the next stream. But like that is, to me, that's the answer. But yeah.
The other big thing I would say is that you should prefer bigger companies to smaller companies, because it's a lot easier to get in the door at a bigger company than a smaller company, I found, because like a smaller company needs every person to be immediately useful, whereas a bigger company, they have just more people, more bloat, more projects. They are a lot of times easier, like it's easier for them to take on a junior person.
Yeah.
So
also LinkedIn's a really good resource. I mean, there's some noise over there too, but if you want a job at a particular company, sure, you can go look on their website and maybe they have it posted, but you can also look through your network, and chances are, if you have a decent sized network on LinkedIn, like a friend of a friend works for that company or knows a recruiter who's filled positions for that company, and you can try to reach out to people and say, hey, I'd love to work for this company. See if you can get an in, which will let your resume, not just be one in a big pile, but get in front of the right people.
Okay. So I'm gonna throw in everyone. So I think kind of like we're a little past the middle piece. It's okay if you don't want to answer this question. Completely understand if you don't want to answer this question. But I think one of the most powerful. I think one thing people don't talk about in tech are salaries.
Money, yeah.
It's money, and I do think it's very important to talk salaries. I think that yes, I think that should be a conversation that is more broadly had. And someone specifically asked a question recently about salary negotiations. I skipped over a bunch. We're gonna get back to those, but I do want to, while everyone's kind of engaged right here in the middle, if you're willing to talk about it, talk about it. Even if you just want to give past roles, you want to give your current role, but maybe past roles, and talk about how maybe your salary progressed. I think that's powerful for people to know how your salary progressed for engineers who are more senior.
Yeah.
If you want me to start, I'll start to make you feel a little bit better about it. But you do not have to talk about this.
I want to talk about it.
Salaries are very important.
So right now I'm getting 116, and Freelance has a bunch of modifiers. I'm severely underpaid.
Woo!
That's right.
Sorry, fearless.
But also after he can watch. I hope he watches.
No, this is fine.
But after years of experience, I realized it's not just about the money. I actually took a pay cut to come here. I was closer to 130 before I started working at Fearless. But the culture, I was kind of in a skiff environment. I didn't like that environment. I didn't like the culture. It was really just not fulfilling for me. So I actually took a pay cut to come here. But when I first started out from Georgia, first job was 50. And then after that, they bumped me up to like 60, 63, 65. Next job, 75. I worked 75 for a while. Next job was 100. Next job after that was 105. No, same job. 105. And then I remember all the little increments, man.
Yep.
115, 120, 123, and then it jumped up to 130.
Okay.
So your 75 to 100 was your largest jump.
That was the
like
largest.
A change in role, a change in.
I literally, with the job I was at, I don't know if I should say their name. Novetta. I was at Novetta, making 75K, right? And then I literally told them I'm leaving if I do not get paid more money because I was doing everything. And I'm not saying do that, but I did that, and I just planned. I waited, and then Booz hit me up, and that was 100, and I just took it, and it was 25. And I would say to really get those big jumps, you probably have to leave. It's very hard to get a $25,000 raise.
If you don't leave,
or at least threaten to leave.
Leave or a counter. Those are pretty much the only way it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Most of the time you gotta leave.
So do you think your pay cut that you took coming here, do you think it was worth it? Like with with you appreciating the culture here more?
Oof. Is it worth it? I do feel like it's, that's a good question.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I did take it, and I don't regret working at Fearless. I do like it. I don't miss that money, honestly, because I was so miserable doing what I was doing at that place. That extra $15,000 really did not. It doesn't matter because if you're miserable.
I was gonna say you don't want to be anywhere that
you don't
like,
exactly
you feel bad all the time.
So yeah, I mean every day it was just bad, and I'm not saying that was bad for everybody. It was bad for me. I couldn't be in that DoD space anymore. It was just killing me. And I had been in DoD since I graduated college. So it was 2010 to 2018. Just 8 years of just skiff. I'm like, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other brave souls? We're gonna circle back, but any other brave souls?
So I'm not going to reveal my salary, but I'll talk about like trajectory, right? So
Great.
Earlier in your career, you should have a pretty steep trajectory. Your salary increases year over year. If you're not, you're doing something wrong. You're not
Pretty
learning.
steep.
Yeah. So and it will plateau like as you gain more seniority. Like eventually, there's like diminishing returns. You're not going to be getting like the huge raises every year. The key is. If here's the sad reality is very few companies actually will just voluntarily give you your market worth without you fighting for it a little bit. That's just the truth. It shouldn't be that way, but that's how the industry works. That being said, if you see that your skills have progressed, you've reached a milestone, go out and interview somewhere, get an offer. Or just talk to recruiters and see if they're entertaining a certain number that you have in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they are and you're getting real traction, you just prove that you're worth that much. Go back to your employer and just say, hey, I'm worth X. Can you make that happen?
Right.
If they say no, well, you know you're worth it, so you may have to make a move. But that's my suggestion.
I would definitely agree with that. In the beginning, I was getting raises. I didn't even know why I was getting those raises. I think it was I was so underpaid.
Yep.
Because I was from Georgia, and I saw $50,000, man, and I jumped on that. And I moved to Silver Spring. I stayed there for a year, worked that job, and they were just giving me money, and I was like, ooh.
You're good.
Okay. So yeah, you're definitely right about that. They literally just give it to you the first few years. You don't have to ask for anything. And then you plateau a bit, and then you gotta fight them. You know what I mean? You got to know how to negotiate too.
I mean, it's easy in the beginning because it makes your employees happy. But especially if it's like your first job out of college or like your first job in tech, like you don't know how much you're supposed to be getting paid. So like it's easy to be like, oh, I'm making $50K, and they're like, no, we'll give you another $20K, and you're like, $20K,
great.
And you find out like, oh, like they're hiring all these new people at like 90. Like, what is it doing? Like, I started at, my first job was 24 an hour, which is like 48, 49K a year.
Right, yeah.
And then I jumped to like 78. And then I jumped to like over 120 something. And now I'm like mid 100s.
Yeah, the
So
jumps
was
are.
it because you changed companies?
So for me, it's always been changing companies for me. I got one big jump staying at Oracle. When I went from being like a intern to being full time, I got a big jump at Oracle. Yeah. Oh, so I mean, I ended up leaving Oracle because like they wouldn't pay more. Like, they had like a big headquarters in San Francisco, and I was not in San Francisco. So like, our company, like our business unit was like losing money. They're like, oh, we can't like justify. I got like Larry Ellis is trying to buy another island. He's not trying to like.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But for me, it's all about like changing companies and like. I think like the offer is important, like because even if you don't leave for more money, like it's really easy to get stuck doing the same thing, which isn't good for your career either.
That's another thing. Yeah.
Yes.
You get pigeonholed, man.
Yeah, it's like
We're gonna talk about that as well, for sure.
So true.
But I want to stick on the salary just for a little while longer. It is one thing that's important to know if you're logging on and you don't know where we are. We are in Baltimore, Maryland, so your locale is absolutely an important part of where your salary negotiations are. So keep that in mind. So if you're hearing something that's and you're like, wow, it's amazing, or you're hearing something that's saying like, oh man, these guys are getting way overpaid. Like keep that in mind because your area does matter. Doesn't mean you can make what we make in that area, and it doesn't mean you're going to make as little as we make in that area, depending on where you are. So just something to keep in mind.
yeah, if you're in San Francisco, just add 80K.
Just add, yeah.
More than that.
So
Minimum 80K.
I started out. My first job was I was making $33,000 driving from Baltimore to Northern VA every day. I worked there for a year. Got the same job in Baltimore, making $55,000. Got the same. Then I worked that along with another job full time. So the other job was making $60. So I had 60 and 55 at the same time, and I was the richest guy on the planet in my mind, even though I was working all the time. But tech gives you a little bit of that flexibility. I quit both of those and made something. I was making 65. I left there in 5 months because I told the guy I was gonna punch him in the face because he was very toxic to me. And I'm a very nice guy, I really am. And he really and he wasn't even talking to me, he was talking to someone else. And I was like, hey, you gotta, we're adults, can you not talk to us like that? And he did it again, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna leave because I'm gonna hit you, and I'm not a bad person. I never came back. I got a job the next week making 75. Then I jumped from 75 to 100 to 117, and 117 to mid 100s now currently. But again, and none of my roles were DevOps roles until I was at 100. The 100 was my first DevOps role. Before that, it was a lot of systems administrator, like web operations engineer, very DevOps infrastructure. They were all infrastructure jobs, but that was around the time DevOps started to take off, and that is when I was able to move. And I've had offers. I've had offers in the past few years of well over $160,000. But again, it's all about everything's. Like I said, I was at a place where I almost fought somebody for the way they treated people. Not even treated me, the way they treated people. So I think where you work is important. We're in my office right now, and my company, the company at Fearless, they allow me to do things like this, and that's important to me. Very important to me. So keep those things in mind. There are other things besides money that can make or break you.
I was going to ask them, so when you all are looking at the salary, are you also evaluating all of the other items that they're offering?
Total compensation.
And looking at it as a total comp package? Because, I mean, you could be making $175,000 and have zero health insurance and 2 weeks of PTO. You know, so is that what you all are accounting for, or are you just looking at the number and going?
That's just salary.
That's actually a question right now.
Oh,
that's crazy.
Perfect.
Same page.
Yeah.
I'll start. Yeah. I look at the salary first, and then I'll look at the medical insurance. How much am I gonna have to pay out of pocket?
How much you pay out of pocket?
Zero here. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Pay nothing. Oh, that was okay. Yeah.
No.
I pay nothing.
I'm trying to have a deal. I want those referral bonuses. If anyone wants to come to Fearless, message me first.
No.
And I'll split the money with you. But yeah, we do get recruitment bonuses. So I'm doing my job recruiting right now.
This man's
so,
doing a full plug, bro.
Yeah, come on. You don't pay for health insurance. Whole family doesn't pay. You got 6 kids. You don't pay a dime for health insurance.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Then that's rare. That's rare. That's not a common thing. So shout out to Fearless. But I look at the money, the medical insurance, and then I look at PTO. Those things are important. Time off away from work. And then the dental and all that other stuff. And I care about it, but it's for me money, medical, PTO.
Not gonna lie, I never look at the medical, just because like most tech companies have pretty good like health benefits, and I'm fairly young and I'm fairly in good shape.
Are you willing to share your age?
Yeah, I'm 28, so I don't have any major health issues except for that I have bad knees because apparently I keep getting hurt. But that's a new thing like the last 6 months. But so I always look at like the base comp, and then I look at if there's a bonus. And then a lot of places in tech they offer like stock. Like someone was asking about that, like you can get like more in stock than you do in your salary. That is a thing that happens. Our friend just went to Amazon and like in Baltimore he's getting like close to 300K, and like his base is like 160, and so the rest is like stock and bonus. So if it's a publicly traded company, then like looking at like the stock grants or the stock options is important. If it's not a public traded company, then it's a lot harder to figure out what it's worth.
I look at 401k too. How much is the company putting into that? I try to stay away from anything that's less than 4%. Usually, you know what I mean?
You're saying you don't want to work till you're 75?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
I think work-life balance is one of those things also that it's hard to measure, and it's sometimes hard to even know what they're offering in that area. But you can usually ask a couple questions like, what are the overtime expectations? Are people do you want to? Because one thing is like if you go work for like a startup or like a small little bootstrap company that's like just getting off the ground, like there's a much higher chance that people are going to be doing the whole weekend warrior thing and like putting in extra hours to get shit done. But like whereas if you work for a big corporation with a very like a very defined process, it's more common to be putting in your 40 hours. There's nothing wrong with one way or the other, but you got to know like are you fresh out of college looking for your first job and you have like work-life balance isn't a high priority to you because you just want to work on interesting stuff and get your feet in the door. Mm-hmm. Whereas maybe you're a little older, you have a family, you have other things that you have constraints that you don't want to be working 70 hours a week every single week.
Right.
Like you gotta know what is gonna work with your lifestyle and make sure that you can usually ask a few questions to get some insight into that when you're at the interview or even phone screen process.
Yes, I agree with that. Work-life.
Does either one of the more junior folks, if you're not willing to share, don't share. But just wanted to give people some. If possible, give them a range.
I actually was going to chime in before the conversation changed. But when I was interning, I was making $15 an hour, and I wasn't doing 40 hours a week. But now I'm making $70 a year, which is like $33 an hour. So that's the only jump I've had, really. But it's definitely a nice jump. So
congratulations.
That's amazing.
When I started out, I was making like 27 an hour, which is like low 50s a year. And then I worked there for like 6-7 months, and then I jumped, my only jump, and now I'm making 80.
Dope.
Nice.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Anyone? Everyone good? I genuinely think, I really wish people would like. I had to do so much like searching and like talking to people like to like find out what people were making. Like no one, like people aren't willing to share.
Why do you think we're not willing to share?
Because so people, it's a culture problem like of the world really of the country, and people will both shame you if you're not making enough money and if you're making too much money, and I think people are worried about what it does change what people think about you once they know how much you made. It does. A lot of people, not everyone, but it changes how people treat you. Yeah.
Especially with the
Yeah.
being like,
Absolutely.
oh, you don't carry your weight, but you're making more than me. What?
Yeah, yes, like people. I mean, you'll have. I've had friends. I've had friends who are like I'll be like, can't go out. Like I'm like I don't really, like we don't got that much money right now. And they're like, what? Like you have all the money? It's like, bro, chill. Like I'm really broke. I'm really broke right now. like, but I don't know. People there is a stigma around both high salaries and low salaries. Like if you're not right in that sweet spot, people do feel some type of way. But I would like to change that. I want people to know what to go ask for. I want people to know what they can ask for. Like for a lot of people, actually 20K is life changing. Like it's completely life changing. Changes the trajectory of your lineage, not even just yourself. Like it can literally change the trajectory of your lineage. So I think it's an important conversation. So I appreciate you all participating in that piece. There.
Yeah, man. What do you think is a good salary to come in at? Because I still don't know.
A good salary to come in at. I think it depends on what you're doing. I think if you're coming from software, personally, and it depends on where you are. I mean, if you if you have a full software degree and you're super great, I personally think mid 60s is what you should be shooting for. If you're self-taught, I think you should be looking for high 40s, low 50s to start. And then I think you should move out of that real fast. Real quick, but just to get your foot in the door, say you have some experience. But again, I think it depends on what you do, though. Like I think different languages, different subset of skills foster different amounts.
So I was gonna add, just like in my job search, for just looking for jobs when it was time for me to graduate, the ranges I've really seen was 50 to 80, and then there were some positions where you had to be cleared. And they were like 65 to 75, which, I mean, for a junior is good, but the fact that you're cleared, I feel like that makes you a lot more desirable, and in the long run, you can make a lot more money with that clearance.
Yeah, I mean, and these are all like East Coast Baltimore numbers for the most part. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I've not been in Baltimore my whole career, and like neither have you. But like if you're in New York City, like your pay is going to like be significantly higher. If you're in like California,
30, 40,
It should be crazy in New York.
Like I would say, if you're like a non-tech hub, which is like in my opinion like any city that's not like San Francisco, Seattle, New York, or like Austin maybe, like yeah, you should be aiming for like no less than 50.
Mm-hmm.
Like whether you're self-taught or not, like 50 is like I'd be like anything less than 50, I'd be like you gotta like give me a plan to how soon raises are gonna come, get me out of that soon. And then if you're in a tech hub, I would say like yeah, you're probably like hoping like for like something starting like the 70s, 80s.
How did you know when you were making that money? Say you were making 80K at some job, and you were like, you know what, I need to get more money. What was it that kind of started that?
It was simple. Like people started hitting me up, offering like people salaries way more than I was making. I did get raises when I was at Oracle. But after a certain point, it topped out, and so it was two things. Like one, I knew where I was because I was just a mid-level engineer, and I had people who were like level 8, on tiers there's S1, S2, S3, whatever. I was at S2, and I had people S8s being like, I don't have time to do this. Go ask them to do it. And it's that was so I know for a fact I'm doing the level of the work of someone who's 6 levels above me. I'm not getting his pay because I see what car he drives.
That's what gets me,
into
bro.
work, and I just know what car I drive into work. And then I started getting in my LinkedIn, people would hit me up being like, "Hey, yeah, I want you to come interview for this job. You have great work experience. Your stuff lines up perfectly with this role. Starting salary between 110 and whatever." And I'm like, "No, well, Oracle, you guys got plenty of more money."
Yeah.
And it was similar at other places too. Once you get your foot in the door, people will start reaching out to you.
That's true.
A lot of people are like, "Oh, I never add anyone on LinkedIn." I'm like, literally, I add any single person who adds me.
Me too, bro. Everybody.
Yeah.
Except for the people who are trying to sell me business solutions, which people are trying to do now. They're like, "Oh, Mastermind, I'm sure you guys have some infrastructure needs that need to be taken care of." I'm like,
honestly, I had
Twitch
to
got
because
me.
I had a guy reach out to me because I work for a big public company, so they just find your email because they're like, "Oh, you work for this. I know your first name, your last name. I can guess your email." And so they'll reach out and be like, "I want to sell you this solution." I'm like, "Well, first of all, I'm not the right person to talk to at the company. Like, we have a whole procurement process. I am not a part of it. But then, like, 6 months later, he reaches out. He's like, hey, like, so this company I'm working for, we're actually trying to hire some engineers too, like, if you're interested. And I was just like, well, I might be.
No, yeah.
Also, just talk to recruiters. If you suspect that you're underpaid, like you're not getting paid what you're worth, and that it's not about maximizing your earnings per se. Of course, money matters, but it's just about getting paid what is the value of your of what, and that's not really like. There are like real ranges that exist for different types of roles at different levels of seniority. So if you suspect you're worth more than you're getting paid, go get your resume in front of a couple of recruiters and be very upfront about, I'm looking for something in this range. If they're taking you seriously and they're moving you to the next phase, you just proved that's now a data point. Like you proved that you have the skills to get paid that much money. Whereas if they're saying like, no, sorry, we're looking for more experience, or that's just too hot. That's north of what we pay for someone in this role. You're probably not ready to make that jump, and that's it.
I would say I disagree, and I think you should try to especially early on, you should try to maximize your earnings. Like
I do like this disagreement.
I mean, like, so it's like
early on.
It's like a personal thing for me. It's just like if you're under the age of like say 40, like you should be trying to maximize your earnings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I personally don't want to work till I'm 75 either. Like, at least I want to be doing something at 75, but I don't want to be just like coming in and punching like the clock on a 9 to 5. So I'm like, I think you should work and make efforts to like maximize your earnings while you still can, because like you said before, like once you start having a family, like that affects how you can work, when you can work, what job even makes sense for you. So I think if you are young and have less responsibilities, less things outside of your own personal life that like take your time, you should try to maximize your earnings. Like you're not always going to have the ability to just drop everything and move to the other side of the country to take a 6-figure job at Google.
You're absolutely right. Maximizing your earning potential is really important, and I don't mean to discourage that at all. My point is just that sometimes you can make more money in the long run by delaying from the short run. So like, for example, like you might have, let's say you took a job at a particular company and you're in the middle of a critical project. You're 1 year in, right? You can make a jump and get like a 3% raise, right, at another company, 2% raise. Or you could finish that project, deliver the goods, have a big gold star on your resume about this like really impactful thing that you actually finished, right? And then 6 months or a year from then, go back out on the market with like, something really impressive. Now you're looking at a 10-15% bump, right? Because you just waited maybe 6 months. So it's not that's where there's just like, it's not always obvious, like when is the time to wait versus when is the time to level up. But like, I would just caution against that mentality of like, oh, they're offering me more than some marginal amount more than I'm making today, I'm out, right? That's not going to really, like, that might help a little bit, but it's in the long run, it's not going to serve you well.
I think with everybody.
Yeah, and actually I've been lucky enough to, like, every time I left a job, it was usually after a major project. So I would wrap up that project, and it just happened. Like, it just lined up perfectly, and I would just leave. Right. But to your earlier point, I would say in the beginning of your career, try to do, not necessarily jump for different amounts of money, jump for different types of experience. If you get somewhere and they pigeonhole you, and you've been doing something for 2 years, and you've mastered it, you've written all the Java you can write, you want to do something different, and they're not going to give it to you, then leave. Especially if you're 23, if you know that's not what you want to do for the rest of your life. So I would try to get as many different experiences earlier, so then when you do get a family, you do, get 35 or whatever, you got enough to, like, your resume is packed, and then you can get that, get some money.
Also, for experiences, like, it's good to work for a consulting company, because then you work on one project, then they move you to the next one, so you get a lot of different experiences, which is very good to put on your resume. So
You should also talk about in interviews as well.
Major for the same company, just
yes.
so nasty. I was like,
a lot of us do. Four of us work for the same company. The other 3 do not. I also work for Mastermind, so that counts as
That counts.
another one as well. So yeah, deal with that. No, seriously, major. This is like a super crazy major plug to segue us into the next thing. But we brought up recruiters a lot. But I think one of the issues with the tech industry is that there's a lot of people in it for the money right now. Most recruiters you speak to have no idea what they're actually recruiting for. So in 2020, a part of Mastermind will actually be engineers placing engineers. So that will be something that's coming in the future. So keep an eye out for more information on that. But especially if you're entry level, looking to move up, we will there will be a framework in place for finding those jobs and getting placed at those jobs. So just keep an eye out for it. Again, you can see here that hopefully you believe that we're knowledgeable and that the people that you've seen on the stream, that you've talked to, everyone's not a part of it. But yeah, just I think one of the things that is missing in the industry currently is that the people who are hiring for these things have no idea what they're looking for. They have no idea what they actually need. So yeah, we'll be advocating for you and help getting you placed. So keep an eye out for that. A question we missed out on that was a part of the last conversation was negotiations. Like, what do you do? I guess what are some quick, because we don't want to dive too deep into this, like quick tips on either counter offers or how to maximize when you are in a position to get a new position. Like, how do you maximize and have that conversation?
I would say, just from experience, that whenever a recruiter asks you, what's your number, don't tell a number. I would give a range. Say I'm looking for anything between 75 and 85. That's usually what I do. Just because from my experience, when you give a number, they try to hold you to that number. But if you give a range, really you put the ball in their court. What are you going to give me if I say 75 to 85? You can give me 85 or you can give me 75? That tells me a lot about that job. That tells me a lot about you.
I'm going to give you 65.
See?
Right,
See
so
what I'm saying?
if they say 75, then you're like, all right,
I would take it further.
even though it's in your range. Like,
It just tells me in my head, oh, they're trying to lowball me.
Okay.
It just tells me more information. That's all, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't be mad. I told him 75, 85. Could be, but it's a different perspective if he tries to offer me 85
Right.
than if he tries to offer me 75. That's it, really. That's helped me a lot.
I would say don't even give a range. Like to me, I'm like, there's like a negotiation thing that I read a long time ago. It's like the first person to give a number loses. So like it's like obviously you don't want to like a lot of people that say give a range because they don't want you to waste your time like going through the whole process for a job and they're like only offering 75 and you're looking for like 110.
Yeah.
But like I'd rather like go through the process while them and then they give me a number. I'm just like, well, I'm amazing. You guys got to go more than like have undersold myself. But
So I disagree with the idea of like first person gives a number loses. Actually, there's a concept called anchoring in negotiation where you actually specifically throw out the first number because you get to, and that gives you the ability you were talking about shaping the conversation. You get to sort of frame the conversation around the number, right? So that's a powerful thing when done well. Depending where you are in your career, it can, I think, is that helps you determine when is the right time to bring up money. If you're just getting started, you have less negotiating power. That's the truth, and they know it. You know it. It's just the reality. So you may want to delay talking about money until a little further in the process. If you have a little more experience under your belt, you're a little more senior, you probably have a little more negotiating power, and that's where it can make sense to just be very. First of all, it's not about what you want; it's about what the position is worth. And there's a market. There's a market, just like there is for any good. There's a market for the service that you have, and that's where you should be educated before you even talk to that recruiter or anybody. You should be educated. And you can do a little bit of homework on your own, like Glassdoor,
man.
right? To get a ballpark for in this part of the country for roles with this many experience, with these types of technologies, they're in a certain range, right? And you should know that. So, and when you have that conversation, assuming you're a little bit more senior, you just say, it's my understanding that a role of like the one that you're offering is in this range. Is that correct? Right? That's a pretty strong statement. Like you just said, that's the market rate. That's my understanding is the market rate. And is that what you're offering?
And you have that backup because it's not like you're just pulling that number out of nothing. It's what the
Exactly.
market is.
Right.
I love that, man.
that's a really good point. Like information is like the most important part of like any negotiation.
Right.
Like whoever has more information, like that's why you don't tell them what you make now. Like Remember what you do. Don't tell them what you do.
I generally agree with that. I agree with that. You don't need to disclose what you make currently. I generally give I also give a range. And my range is always well within what I'm willing. Like, I've done the market research and I know what I want. And hopefully our conversation, even if they can't meet that, if the company is, really cool, I will go through the interview process anyway, hoping that I can wow them and they can come up, if I really think that this company is good for me, that they have a lot of what I'm offering, I will do that. But usually, again, your time is valuable. I generally throw out a range, but I absolutely understand not. I understand the psychology of not disclosing what you're looking for either. I think with any form of negotiation, even if you're on Craigslist, I think different companies, different people you're working with will net you different things, for sure. So
learning how to negotiate is so important, man. Learning how to do it.
Yes, I think not being afraid to do it. Like, I think the first step should be not being afraid to do it. You may not maximize your first salary negotiation, but I think so many people are afraid to negotiate. Like, people like you. If you get to the end of an interview process, if someone offers you 80 and you wanted 85, they're not going to. If you like the company and you're like, hey, I do want to work here, but I really want 85. If you ask for 85, like, I think people are afraid they're going to be like, well, can't pay that, you got to go. If you made it that far, they want you. Like, it's expensive to go through this hiring process. Like, to pull senior engineers and leadership out at time out of their day to interview you. Like, if you got this far, they like you, they want you to be there, and it's okay to ask. Yeah, I know it's scary, I really do, but ask for what you want. They'll work with you. Usually they'll work with you. They may not give you the money. They may give you something else, more vacation days. They may give you something else. But like, the first step to getting good at salary negotiations is not being afraid to do them. Like, a lot of people are really afraid to do them. So make sure you are negotiating your salary. Make sure you're negotiating your salary.
I think if I gave someone a number, I would be scared that they would be like, oh, we're going to give her way more than that, but she only asked for this. So,
she'll ask for this. That's right.
That's the problem with saying a number.
Yeah,
It's like you said. It's easier to do later on in your career because you have a better idea of where you should be paid. Mm-hmm. But early on, if you're interviewing with Google, don't tell Google the number because you're gonna be like, I want 150, and Google's like,
okay,
150, I'll hire you right now.
Deal.
So actually, good employers realize that way underpaying someone for their skills is a bad move for the employer, right? Which is counterintuitive. You're like, oh, they're getting a good deal. It's bad for the employer because it creates a flight risk, right? Yeah. If I hire you and I pay you $40,000 less than you should be paid at another company based on your skills and experience, you're gonna figure that out. I may get a deal on you for 6 months, but it's not gonna be long before the next recruiter comes along and offers you that $40,000 raise, and you're out, right? And I just spent a lot of time and effort training you and getting you brought into my company. So good employers, to be fair, not every employer is a good one, but good employers will realize that even if I can get a deal on you, I shouldn't try. I'm not gonna try to vastly underpay you just because I can.
But I think it's important for people who are listening, who are going through these interviews, to know employers will totally underpay you. They will completely cut your throat. They will underpay you.
There are ones who will.
It's just really easy to become underpaid because the market changes so often.
That's right.
Like 10 years ago, machine learning was not a big thing. Now, if you can credibly say you have any experience doing machine learning, you can go make $500,000 tomorrow.
Yep.
Because it's just the market changed, and now what was previously a pretty okay paid niche is now a extremely well paid niche, right?
That's true.
And so it's just really hard. Companies have literally you can buy pay surveys that literally are just there's all these leading surveys that are just what do engineers with this level of experience at this level make, right? And then companies buy these surveys so they can properly level people and know what they should be paying you. But the data changes all the time. What was previously a $150,000 job could tomorrow, be going for 120 just because suddenly there's a bunch of graduates graduating with this, so there's more people in there, or suddenly everyone's switching fields and now there's a fewer, so it goes up.
Mm-hmm. That's great. We have a couple more questions that I really want to get answered. But again, I think salary is really important. I think if anyone has any additional salary questions, reach out in the Slack. I'll share the Slack with anyone here who's not a part of the Mastermind Slack. But if we have any other questions, we'll try to hop in and we'll try to get those questions answered for you. And actually, any question, if for some reason we missed your question, ask it in the Slack. We'll try to get some answers out for you. But Garodak asks, as a sole company DevOps engineer with less than 2 years of experience, what resources can you recommend for implementing CI/CD solutions? Candace, do you have any idea? Like, do you have any ideas for this? Like,
I don't feel like I would be good to answer.
no, I mean that's completely fair.
I was gonna say GitLab has auto DevOps that you can like set up. So it's like you could do it manually or you could have it like auto DevOps do it for you. So I feel like that's like a good like way you can like implement like some pieces of it to like learn a little bit of it and not be like overwhelmed with everything.
I actually really agree with GitLab's DevOps solutions. GitLab has a full DevOps pipeline, and I think it's a good way to get your feet wet because you don't need to know how to do everything all at once. I think it's a good place to start to understand the process, just to kind of see it in action, and then start how to implement the pieces, manually yourself with other tools outside of the GitLab ecosystem. When you're trying to, if you're the sole DevOps person, I do think you need to learn a tool. Jenkins being the biggest one. I hate Jenkins. I hate even saying the words you should learn Jenkins, but you should that'll probably give. I mean, Jenkins is great. Or again, check out Circle CI or Travis CI to start to understand like what a tool like that can do. It may not give you the context of like what you need to use it for, to like how to solve problems with it, but just to kind of start to understand what the tool can do. And then I would just start looking at rank. Like if you just Google CI pipelines for applications, like people have written so many blog posts and things about how to create things like that. Also, most open source projects have a CI pipeline. Their files, the source files for those are right in the repo. So Travis CI files or Circle CI files or Jenkins files will be right in the repo. And once you learn that tool, you can kind of reverse engineer kind of what they're doing, or submit code to submit updates to that project and start to watch it go through. And then grab yourself a cheap course off of Udemy. I would say YouTube, but it's hard to, when you're trying to learn something, I think it's hard to parse out what's crap and what's great on YouTube. Go to Udemy, wait for a day they have one of those sales where everything's below $10. Don't pay more than $12.99 for anything on Udemy. I'm sorry, Udemy, if anyone's watching from Udemy, like you guys have sales every 2 days. So wait for a sale. Buy a CI/CD course. You'll have it for good. Invest in yourself. Spend $10. Spend $12 for a course. Really, any of the tools will do. I'm sure they'll go through a full pipeline for you. The tooling's different, but the concepts span all of it. So that will be
your engineering team too.
Huh?
Engage your engineering team too.
I like that. As the sole DevOps person, engage your engineering team. I really like that. Do you want to expand on that just a little bit?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, like at the end of the day, like CI/CD is like meant to like help your engineers like get code out faster and like be more robust and more correct. So like, if you're the only person doing DevOps, you should be like, definitely. First of all, you want to make sure that you're going to even use the tool, because the last thing you want to do is do a whole bunch of work and then your engineering team's like, oh, we hate this, we don't want to use it. So engage your engineering team early so that they know about it, they're interested, and then siphon off resources from them, so like you can have someone to like game plan through and understand all their like needs and stuff like that. It's really useful.
Dope. That is great. Thank you. That's definitely great insight there. Chug just want me to let everyone know that everyone appreciates you guys coming. We're gonna wrap that up later, like in a few minutes. We're gonna try to knock out one or two more questions. We're at 9:54, just 6 more minutes left, but we'll see what we can get through. But people do appreciate that you guys are here. I appreciate that you guys are here. It's not easy asking, a bunch of well-paid engineers to give up their Monday night. People are doing some cool things on Monday night. So thanks for hanging out. You can see all the Chick-fil-A boxes. I had to buy them on Chick-fil-A. I had to bribe them a little bit.
No, you
but
didn't. No, you didn't.
Yeah, I had to. They weren't gonna do it out of here.
Come on.
I need to do it before this.
Me too.
You did, but no, I genuinely appreciate it.
The Dolphins are playing right now. We don't have anything better to do.
Man.
He literally said it to me earlier.
But that is the facts, big facts. I'm a Redskins fan, and I don't want to watch the Dolphins either. So, yeah, cool. I've been QA for over 4 years. I love the QA questions. Trying to transition to DevOps for a year. I'm overwhelmed by the learning curve, specifically the massive tool set to learn. If I still want to focus on, this is a great question. Does anyone else want to? I'm very passionate about this, so I don't want to start.
Well, this is your question.
But I don't. Okay.
I could take a stab.
I'll start. What we talking
Yeah.
about?
Sorry, just.
So,
That was great.
So instead of trying to like learn the whole toolkit, because every single category of the toolkit's gonna have like endless different tools, right? Pick like think of the DevOps toolkit as a set of like boxes, right? You have your infrastructure as code. You have your CI/CD tools. You have your version control tools. I don't know, probably you have your like containerization technologies and like orchestration tools, right? And you could probably break it down further if you wanted, or maybe even differently. I'm not saying that's like the way to break down DevOps, but if you pick one tool in each of those respective categories, learn it reasonably well so that you know it, you understand it, you can practice with it, you're pretty dangerous. And if you show up in an interview and you're like, I know Terraform, they're a CloudFormation shop, they're probably still going to talk to you if you really know Terraform, because you've demonstrated that you know this, you can learn that, right? Like,
Yeah.
that would be my suggestion.
You just explained the stream. That is literally what we just pick tools out of some categories. So so who asked that? King Wood. There's a roadmap.sh. If you go to roadmap.sh, it's a site that has kind of a breakdown of these categories, and that's what this course was kind of based off of. All we did was we just hit a category and pick tools. Cloud computing, we just chose AWS. For containers, we just chose Docker because it's the biggest one. But CI/CD, we use Circle just because it was a little bit easier to get up and running with. Like, we just chose tools that fit in each of those. But the goal was really to learn the concepts of that box of solving the problem rather than the individual tool. So don't focus on learning this giant set of tools. Learn the concepts of the box. And learn what tool, what problems those big pieces solve. So again, CI/CD, learn what that solves. Like learn what cloud computing can do and kind of what that solves, and get familiar with just one cloud provider. Just kind of hit each of those boxes. The learning curve is high. I would argue that you don't need to know all of it. I think one of the problems is people think you need to know all of it before you hop in. There are definitely sections of this where I'm terrible at. I need a lot of help in, and I can take the time to learn it, but you focus on some things, you're better at some things than others. So you don't need to know all of it before you hop in. Just kind of have a general understanding of most of those things for sure.
I'd say specifically for the person switching from QA, like you should start with CI because that's the part that's closest to where you are now.
Yep.
Like QA is all about testing, and maybe you're doing manual testing, or maybe you're doing a bit of automation, but like CI is literally all about like automating your testing. So I would say that's the part you're closest to now in QA, so that's where you should start, at least for that person in particular.
Cool. Yeah. So someone asked, what's so bad about Jenkins and what's preferable in your opinion? Jenkins is, there's nothing inherently bad about Jenkins. I mostly just like Jenkins because I've managed Jenkins servers. I had to manually manage servers that were running these Jenkins jobs, and managing Java applications at scale can be really annoying. And Jenkins is the oldest, and so when it was built, the way that the workflow of Jenkins, I think, is a little bit antiquated. It can do a ton because the ecosystem is very large for it. There are all kinds of plugins that are built for it, so it's great. It can do anything that you want it to do, like really. But I think that more tools have come out recently to solve the problems that current technology kind of puts in your face. And I think those tools are a little bit, I think they're more suited for, if you have a more modern technology stack, I think those tools are a little better suited for the job and easier to manage personally. And again, I think Circle CI, Travis CI are a little bit better. Again, there are a lot of CI options. Those are the two that like a lot of open source projects use. And that's how I kind of originally got into those. But I think it's a lot easier to kind of just hop in and get going with those. But nothing inherently wrong with Jenkins. Jenkins is a great tool. It's been around so long that everyone has war stories from Jenkins. So that's I think that's part of it. Just any tool, spend enough time working on it, there's going to be a lot of bad things said about it. That's what's going on with Java, to be honest. That's why people talk so bad about Java.
They didn't talk like that like 5-10 years ago.
I
feel
know,
like
because it ran the world.
ain't that some,
It still runs the world.
right? For the most part.
But we got some strong opinions here. But okay. All right. It's 10 o'clock. You guys' time is very important. So, one, thank you all for coming out. If there's any parting words you feel like you want to say, absolutely say it. But again, I'll send you all the stuff about Slack. Please ask your questions that I missed. I know I missed them because we spent a lot of time on salary negotiations. Ask them in the Slack. We will try to get them answered for you. And I'm really sorry that we didn't get to it. But yeah, I just want to thank you all for sticking around for 2 hours. And we're going to wrap up now. So thank you all. What do we have on Wednesday is the specifically focus on interviewing. So we'll talk about salary and stuff as well. I have some like key points about the interview process and kind of what you need to know. So you can ask those questions there as well. But that's what Wednesday will be focused on, and that will be the end of the bootcamp wrap up. And again, then we'll go into the retro on that following Monday. But thanks everyone for showing up, sticking around, asking great questions. Like I said, if anyone does anyone have any parting words of motivation or something? Okay.
Give Aaron some money on Patreon or something.
I don't have a Patreon. I'm not going to get one either. But,
okay, well, never mind.
You should
don't
just,
give him anything.
If you like this stuff, seriously though, if you like this stuff, feel free to subscribe, especially if you have Amazon Prime. Even if you don't want to subscribe and you have Amazon Prime and you're not using it, I would like you for you to subscribe because it allows us to do things like this. Allows for